Hello everyone. It's been a long time since I've made a video for this series for the Song of Ice and Fire Miniatures game, but now that my graduate work is complete, my thesis is done, I thought it was time to get back to it, and we would continue trying to finish up the base set by going over how to finish up your bases. I had mentioned, I think in some of the prior videos, the start of the bases we were painting the model, but we're going to go ahead and take that all the way. So what we're going to be doing is getting our base to look something like these guys right here, our Lannister cavalry. As you can see, we've got static grass on there, we've got some rocks, we've got some tufts of grass. All in all, it's a very basic way of basing, but it gets the job done and helps keep the army looking unified, especially on the battle board when you're playing. So when we're working on bases, you can get very elaborate with bases, and however elaborate you want to go, that's up to you. You can add fallen tree limbs, you can add rocky outcroppings, whatever. And I've done that for a lot of miniatures games, but the object of this series is to try to keep things as simple as possible. And also, I've found that when I base things, like I'll go with a snow theme, and I'll have my entire army done in snow, and 95% of the time when I bring my army out to play, I'm playing on the standard grass playing field, you know, Games Workshop grass mat, and some grassy hills on there, so all of a sudden my guys are bringing the snow with them. So I figured green would, just a nice grassy field, would look good, and would help it blend into the board as you're playing. Alright, so the equipment, what we're going to be using here, since we're going to be working on doing another base for the Lannisters, we are going to be using our Naphtha Crimson Liquitex ink. We are going to be using just some BS Apple Barrel white because it was just laying out. Use whatever white you want to. It seems to work fine in this application. I have the Minotaur cracked leather color. Again, it was just something I grabbed because it was about the right color. We're going to be using Elmer's Glue Wall, Light Glue, PVA, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're using. We've also got super glue. And to add onto the bases, we've got your standard grass tufts that you can get at your local gaming store. And we've got from Woodland Scenics, coarse basalt. And that's why we have the paint. The cracked leather. And then we also have this. This is called, I think it's Talus, also by Woodland Scenics. So if you don't have this available, you can just use whatever rocks you can find. But the great thing about using Talus is it's super soft. Let me reach over here and grab my scissors, my clips. So it's really soft, so you can just find a spot of the rock you want to use if you don't want it to be that big. Let's say I really like that piece right there. You can just come in here, use it the proper way, come in there, grab that bit of rock, and it will pop a piece right off of it. So you can make smaller rocks out of this, and you can also use whatever files you have to file down the bottom so they sit flat on the board, and it makes it look like the rock is buried a little bit into the surface and not just sitting on top of the grass. So we've got that available. So we're going to use that in combination with the coarse ballast to create some rocky terrain. Alright, the static grass that we are using to flock these is the burnt grass. It matches the color of the grass tufts I have. You don't have to use that color. If you want something a little more green and vibrant, I completely understand that. I just have a small amount of a brighter green, because I usually do my stuff making it look a little burnt. This is Army Painter Battlefield Field Grass, and you can use that. And I did a model up here. Let's see if we can get the light to hit there. I'm filming somewhere new today, so the light isn't what I'm used to. So you can get a much brighter grass than, say, get that in the light, right? Come on, light. There we go. You can see we've got a much darker browner grass right there. So that's up to you. And also, being that I've got him out, there are some more videos coming. That's not going to be as large of a gap between me posting videos. So the next video I'm going to be posting is I'm going to be going through my Stark Sword and Swordsmen, and I'm giving them spears, because in all of the Song of Ice and Fire books, they're always talking about how many spears they have. And when I hear the term sworn swords, I'm thinking, you know, that's nobility swearing fealty to their lord. These look like rank and file troops. So I'm going to go through and chop out all of the swords. I'm going to save those swords because once I pick up the Baratheon army, the fact that all of them are swinging hammers I think is kind of silly, and we're going to put those swords on some of them. But I'm going to go through how to make these spears quick, easy, and cheap, so you can throw them on there, and they have the added benefit of being very flexible and not being as brittle as the weapons that come with the miniatures as it is. So that's coming. Along with that, I do want to have some sworn swords as sworn swords. So we're going to have a video, and this one will probably be a few away, but I've already ordered the new package of sworn swords, and we are going to go ahead and make those into the Stark Honor Guard. So they will be keeping their swords, but to make them the Honor Guard, we're going to go through and do a little basic sculpting, because there's no reason for you to be scared of using a little bit of green stuff and making some cloaks. So we're going to go through, we're going to make cloaks, put some fur on them, be it bear fur, wolf fur, whatever, so we know that those are the upper echelon of the rank and file for the Stark army. And then the final thing is, I don't know if you've been having this trouble, I have broken a lot of banners. So the plastic that they use, it holds detail great, but these banners love to snap off. So the last tutorial in this series, maybe, before we go on to another, maybe box set or something, is we're going to go through and talk about how to change out these poles with brass. So we're going to use a combination of brass tubing and brass rod to set in new poles to our pole arms and mainly our banners. That seems to be what breaks. And that will help ensure that your models are a little less fragile when you're traveling around with them. Alright, so enough of my chatting to you. We're going to go ahead and go over how we're going to prepare the movement tray, and from there you can extrapolate, of course, how you want to proceed with just basing. Because you guys don't really want to watch me doing it over and over and over again. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure we got some white in there, and we're going to paint the arrow and the lines white. I have tried just going over it with red beforehand, and the red doesn't stand up very well. I was using my usual go-to Privateer press color, Scorn Red, and it does not stand out against the burnt umber. As you'll recall, with the models when we were basing them earlier and just doing the painting, we painted all of these over with, since they have the airbrush effect on them already, we covered them with a burnt sienna ink, and then we did a wash of a burnt umber to sink into the crevices. So these, you know, that's how your bases are going to be if you followed along on the tutorials. These I just took simply acrylic light brown junk from Walmart, because I was just going to use a cheap flat brush, and I loaded up my brush and did a very rough brush over the top, making sure not to get anything on the sides, which had already been primed. So that way we have a little bit of the texture, we can see a little bit of color modulation in there, but it shouldn't matter too much, because at the end of the day, we just have that color on there in case a little of it shows through the grass, so you have some dirt. But a lot of that texture is going to be hidden, and a lot of that color modulation is going to get hidden. Okay, so let's go ahead and get a brush. We're going to take some of that white, and what you're going to do, make sure I'm on camera and not in the shadows. Okay, so what you're going to do is take your brush, and we're just going to come through here and line through. When you're lining through, I try to get in there to where I'm hitting the walls of that recess as well in the white. And if you have any overpaint, just come over, wipe it down real quick. Like I said, that brown is going to get a little pale right there, but it doesn't matter because we're going to be covering up that with grass. So a little bit of color modulation there is not going to hurt anything. And that's a lot sloppier than I usually do because, again, working around the camera isn't the most fun experience I've ever had. Alright, and so we get something better. Maybe that'll work better. Like I said, let's try to make sure there's enough light. Okay, so let's try this. So at least I can be at an angle I'm a little more comfortable working at, instead of trying to manage where I am with the light and the camera. Okay. Yep, there we go. I think you guys can see that just fine. So we go ahead and just keep doing that. And do the final line. So if you are not working on the Lannisters and you're working on the Starks, you can do the same thing and just leave it as white. Or you can do the blue-gray of the Starks or whatever. We're just trying to tie these bases in with a theme. You might decide that, hey, I want to be able to just grab whatever base and go. I get that. If that's your idea, just come up with a color that you want to use for all of your army, or all of your armies, and just go with that on the bases. Your stuff, paint it the way it makes you happy. You can do a Bob Ross thing and say, you know, whatever makes you happy. There's no mistakes, just happy accidents. Now, this is all about having fun and enjoying yourself. Otherwise, why would you do the hobby? But I'm just a wargamer. I just want to play with the models. Okay, I get that. Why are you watching this? If you didn't care about the painting aspect of the hobby, I don't think you'd be here. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and make sure we've got a fairly even coat of white in there. Okay. Alright, so as that dries, I'm probably going to go in to the arrow. Got a little bit on the sidewall, I gotta hit. I'm probably gonna do another coat on the arrow to make sure I have good coverage before we come in and hit that with our red ink. But that doesn't mean we can't start working on super gluing some of this stuff in. Alright, so use the super glue of your choice. Loctite super glue gel stuff's really nice because it sits exactly where you put it. Zap-A-Gap works just as well. I'm going to go ahead and use Zap-A-Gap because I think it's the messier, so it shows you that it's possible. So, right now, let's go ahead and start with our rocks. Go ahead and look at your board and just try to think of somewhere that you want some random stones. Put a little puddle of your glue there. At this point, find yourself a chunk of talus that you want to work, and you can just start filing it, or you can trim it down to flat. I don't want to file for that long, so we're just going to go ahead and get it as flat as possible with our scissors. Just coming in, or with our clips, just going in and hitting it over and over again to make sure I get a nice flat edge. Alright, and we're just going to go ahead and place him right there. And let's find another one, because we're not done yet. Alright, let's see if I can clip this on camera this time. I went over to where my paper towel is. I didn't want to make a mess. Yep, and we're making messes. I'm at home painting today, so I'm gonna have to go find that and sweep it up before my wife gets home. Okay. So there we go. Got a nice flat edge there. And we are going to glue that guy. Let's put him back here. And I got a little chunk we made earlier. I'm going to put a little bit more glue next to that. Slide him in. Alright, now let's go ahead and do some stuff with the coarse ballast. So I like to just put it around the rock so we have just a rocky little area. If you are working with different types of static grass, different lengths, or if you're doing static grass and flock, one thing I do like to do when I'm basing is, if you're going to go with flock, put some glue around your rocks, and that's where you should put your static grass, or put your static grass, or put your tufts there. And because that's going to be area where the grass has less chance of getting trampled, can grow a little longer. But we're doing static grass all over, so now we're just going to go ahead and take this ballast, put the cap over here, and we're just going to sprinkle some of it in there. I just have the cap there so I can collect up, hopefully, what I don't use. Alright, so just go ahead, sprinkle some in, and you can take whatever tool you want, and just make sure that you get that stuff pressed into the glue. If it's not in the glue, it's just going to fall off. Okay, I think that's pretty good. Covering what I can. Of course, you can do this better and recover as much as you want, but I have had the same tub of ballast. As you can see, it's really, really old. I think I bought this 16 years ago, and I have used just the top of it. It goes a long way. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, actually what we're going to do is we're going to wait for that super glue to dry before I talk about painting. Let's add some grass tops. Those are fun. Let's go with somebody right here, sort it in the middle. There we go. And we'll take a larger tuft, since this is a large base. And we're just going to place him right there. And since we're Bob Rossing this, we're going to go ahead and give him a little friend. Alright. Grass tufts like little friends. So we're going to use a smaller grass tuft and place them in there with a hair attached to that. Okay, so now we got our tufts in there. At this point, I think we're safe to go back in and hit our white and do our second coat. Got some the ballast getting that crack there, but it didn't get into the paint. The paint was already dry. That's fine. Just trying to get in there. Now normally I would say never go straight from like the pot or your mixing tray or whatever and use your paint, but this craft paint is so horrible that you add water and it's not going to cover anything. You might as well say goodbye at that point. Okay, so that's got another coat. And that has given our glue time to dry. Alright, so now it's time to paint the ballast to get it to the match up with the talus rocks. Okay, so how I make a color that matches the buff of this is a little bit of cracked leather. I would say 3 parts cracked leather to about 1 part white. And we get a nice color that's very close to the rocks. Let's see if we can get a little closer, a little more white, make it a little pale. Yep, right about there. So then we can just come in here See, that guy wasn't stuck. And we're just going to go ahead and dab in here. I'm using a crappy brush right now because, you know what, I know this super glue isn't dry. If you care about your brushes at all, don't do what I'm doing. Because this is how you ruin good brushes, is you put them into super glue. But I don't want to have to pause this video while I'm recording and do one of those come back in a minute. I'd rather do this all right now. And the effect you're going for when you're brushing this on there is if we dry brush, we're not going to get the coverage we need. So a wet brush, we're just scraping it along the top. So we're going to let some of the dark brown of the ballast show through to help give it a little shading. And we will leave it right there. Okay. Like I said, we're trying to do this quick. You have it look great, or you can do it quick. Your choice. Alright. So our next step is we're going to take a little bit of our red ink. Take our paintbrush. And we're just going to go ahead and load up that brush. And just draw our lines in. Nice and easy. And because we went through and pre-painted this white, the red turns out pretty vibrant right away. Go ahead and draw it across, and the capillary action of the water in the ink will pull it right up against the sidewalls for you. So that white you left there will also get painted, and you don't really have to worry about it. Okay, now let's do the arrow. I'm just going to go ahead and place our ink in, which wasn't dry yet. Okay, well, no matter. I'm going to go ahead and do this arrow in 2 coats. I did the other one as a practice run for this video. I gave everything time and did other things around the house. But this is what you get for hurrying on camera. Okay, so that's going to need a second coat. So at this point, we can go ahead and start preparing this for the grass, and we will come in at the end and hit that. Alright, so for doing the grass, what we need is we're going to use white glue. Need a healthy amount there. And now take your definite sacrificial brush. This guy, I don't even know how long I've had him. I'm going to add a little bit of water. The water's a little murky because I used that earlier to clean my brush after using that cracked leather, since I hadn't grabbed my mason jar that I use at home for painting yet. So we're just going to go ahead and make sure that's nice and wet. And we're just going to come in and start painting the glue over the base. So when you're doing this, you just want to make sure, this is probably the step you have to be the most careful on. I'm still not that careful, but you want to make sure that you don't allow the glue to go down into the wells. Just like when you're doing it on a miniature, you want to make sure you don't get the glue on the bevel of the base. Now if you do, no biggie, you just take your finger, go over the glue real quick, wipe it away, and you're good to go. So to help ensure that, I'm breaking my own rules, But to make sure that you don't get glue dripping down into there, it's best to, just like paint, how when we're painting and we're shading, we start from where we want the least paint and draw to where we want the most. You really just need a little bit of glue at that edge to capture the static grass. So you just draw away from the edge and you won't have any dripping. You can get real close to that edge. So if I'm going to do Baratheon next and do a series of those, I think we'll go through and just do the same speed paint thing, airbrush them up real quick, and then hit the other colors, or do the highlighting and do the glazing, whichever method I decide. But the big thing is going to be getting those models, because every time I look, they seem to be sold out. Also, when we are, if we're going to go through and hit those with the airbrush and do the highlighting and do that grayscale, I have been watching some other videos and I have been saying zenithal highlighting wrong since I learned about it. The only excuse I have for saying zenithal instead of zenithal is because I first learned about this technique from a miniature painter while I was in Europe, and he was a native Spanish speaker, and I asked him what he was saying, and he said, you know, like zenith, the sun. And I was like, oh, zenithial. And he's like, yeah. And so I've been saying it that way ever since. Lo and behold, it's zenithal, which means I'm going to have to go through my videos and change my spelling on my tags, because anybody who's looking up how to do zenithal highlighting and glazing is never going to find my videos because it's spelled wrong. Am I going to re-record them or re-voice them so I say it properly? No. This is just me admitting that I'm a dumbass and didn't know how to say it. At least not in my native tongue. Okay. I'm gonna get some more water. Now this is the boring part right here. Watching me paint with glue. So if you want to skip ahead, you know, go ahead, grab your mouse, start clicking around, find where we get to the next step. I'm sure you'll see it. I do that on tutorial videos too that I'm watching. And I've decided I don't want to listen. But if you do want to listen, hi! Thanks for staying around. I hope the way I film this and doing it real time makes it feel like you're kind of just sitting and painting. You know, you're over at your hobby shop or something in a painting group and just have a little paint along. At least that's what the flavor I'm going for here. Try to make it feel like you're just hanging out. So yeah, it's a real slow pace. I'm not expecting you to keep pace with me while I'm painting, but the idea is you could if you wanted to. Again, it's like the Bob Ross of miniatures. Watch me paint something in 30 minutes, which you will take 2 hours to paint. I know, I've done it. Part of it is because he practiced all of those paintings multiple times before he filmed. Helps you speed it up. And you know what? To be fair, I practice every one of my color schemes on a test model before I try to do a tutorial, because Lord knows I would hate to get on here and try to show you like Clegane yellow speed paint method and then have the yellow turn out looking horrible. as yellow is wont to do. So anytime you try to shade it with black, it wants to go green. You can shade it with orange if you want, but I found that a good looking yellow is usually shaded with a brown. And then you want your browns to be in the red family. Your burns, not your raws. Those raws are a little more yellow, which means they will, which you'd think, oh yeah, that would go great with my yellow. Nope, it'll make it go green. Raw umber, raw sienna, yeah, that'll just turn your yellow shading green. Alright. Just about done here. Just want to make sure that you got decent coverage across here. Make sure everything is sort of wet. You don't want to water your glue down too much, but it's amazing how much hold this glue has even with a lot of water added. And I've done scenic cements before where it's mostly water and just a little bit of glue, and it seems to hold everything in place. Okay, I think we're about to call it. Make sure you edge up into your corners. Keep seeing spots that sort of look dry to me. Okay, we're gonna call it right there. Alright, so now what you can do, this is where we got some static grass in it. We're gonna go grab some more. Sort of see why we have the container. Static grass, of course, makes a huge mess. So make sure you have a container on hand to capture it. Part of how this stuff lasts forever, too. Alright, so actually, no, we'll do this. I'm going to say we try to hit the ink again real quick, but I want the glue to dry. Alright, so we're going to take our static grass and just start sprinkling it on there. It's okay to have it on there super lumpy. We just want to ensure that we have enough static grass to get good coverage. You know, all that extra is going to come off. Just thinking that ink's wet and that paint's still a little wet in that darn triangle, which means there's going to be static grass sticking in there. That's okay, we'll figure out how to clean it up. Because that's a big part of modeling, is screwing stuff up and driving forward anyhow, figuring out new ways to do things. So, if you are not new to this static grass idea, you might know about static grass applicators. I built one out of a bug zapper, and go look on YouTube. You can find all sorts of videos on how to make them. Don't think they work much better than this method, though. So, once you've sprinkled it on, we got this big mound of grass. Go ahead and just tip that into your container, hold upside down, and tap. And that will get your grass standing up on end. Okay, now we can go ahead and take a look real quick and see if there's any areas that need a little bit more glue. If you're not happy with it, go ahead and do some touch-ups. Use a little bit more glue there. That lip could use a little bit more. Right there. Yeah, just some of these edges around the lip didn't quite get enough glue. leftovers. And we're going to resprinkle. There, okay. So rinse and repeat. Actually, I think that red was just about dry. Alright, so as you can see, there's a little bit of brown showing through, but I think that's okay. A little bit of white there. Let me get that one spot before we move on to the ink. A little bit more of this glue. I'm just about out of glue there. There's glue on the top of my white glue container. Go ahead and hit that. Edge out with my finger that little bit of slop I made. Alright. Ooh, same problem right there. A little bit more glue. I'm sure you have to place a little bit more. Okay, there we go. That's enough. So all I'm doing right now is some of those spots where it's a little sloppy with the white. With the grass, the white's still really showing through. So, remember how I said you don't have to be careful about that? Be more careful about it. Just make sure you line in there real nice. Didn't have any problems with the first one, but I didn't have a camera during the first one. Okay. Let's go ahead and hit those areas. I think I just bumped the camera. My apologies. Okay. Alright, and from here, you shouldn't have to do this step. Just take your time. Again, I would expect you guys to be doing this in an assembly line fashion. So once you got to where all of these were done in white, you know, when this one was done in white, you'd go grab your next base and start doing that one. And you just back and forth. Once all the white's done, the first one would be dry, and you would come back in. There's a few hairs there that's stuck in there. Okay. Alright. And if you have any other areas, like I see a little bit of red ink drip down there, just come back in with a black, cover it, you know, rebase, you're good to go. So, there we have it. We can go ahead and move these guys on over. And there we go. So, you can use that method to base, and hopefully you found this somewhat informative, or at least mildly entertaining. And so yeah, next time I think we're going to go through how to quickly make spears and how to place those on our models. And from there, I think the next one's probably going to be brass shafts, and finally doing the honor guard. And then from there, it's just going to depend on what models I get next. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it informative, and we'll talk to you later.